Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my epic rant on the 2023 film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now, before I delve any deeper into the cinematic sewer that I call this film, I want to clarify a couple things. First off, if you like the movie, you had fun with it, I think that's awesome. I think that's radical. I think it's bossa nova. Don't really have an issue with it. I may not agree with the opinion, but I'm glad that there are people out there who feel differently than I do about this movie. Even though I don't care for this film pretty much at all, I'm so glad that there are a lot of people who have different opinions. Because different opinions are what keeps this world interesting. They really are. Second, I am not going to give this film a pass for poor writing, poor characterization, and a ton of other issues just because it's for a younger audience and it's for kids. This was technically for kids too, and it had much better writing, much better characters. This was even more for kids, less serious, less gritty, more goofy, more silly, but it was actually less goofy and less silly and had more moments that felt like there was a little bit more serious stakes than anything in this film. So, no, I don't buy that as an excuse, as a viable excuse or a defense for this film's flaws. Just saying it's for kids and it's for a younger audience is not a free pass for a movie not living up to its full potential because it's intended for a younger audience who might not know better and doesn't necessarily know all the ins and outs of a quality script or story. No, there are a lot of kids' movies that are classics that still hold up to this day that don't have the same problems. So don't give me that. Now, when it comes to this movie, I went into this with very low expectations. Expectations that are about as low as a sewer. Because the Turtles, when it comes to Turtles movies in particular, ever since Turtles 3, have just continually gotten worse and more disappointing. So, judging by the trailers, judging by the concept of the Turtles being even more like teenagers than they ever have been before, judging by the fact that Seth Rogen was involved and the last animated project he was involved with was Santa Inc. Honestly, I thought this was going to be a turtle fail. I thought it was going to be a turtle fail. It was going to be another instance of help, I'm a turtle and I can't get up. And it actually turned out to be worse than I expected it to be. I know some people think, oh, you're exaggerating, it's hyperbole. Not to me. I will take Turtles 3. I will watch that 3 times over Mutant Mayhem. I'll take the 2007 film, even with Leo being dick, because you have the Night Watcher scenes and you have other aspects of it that just feel more like the Ninja Turtles than anything in this movie. I will even take the Michael Bay movies. As much as I don't like those films, I'll take those over this. And the reason for that is the turtles themselves and other aspects of this film are so poorly realized and so badly written that not only does it not really come across like a good adaptation of these characters, it doesn't even have the vibe and the feel of a Ninja Turtles movie. It feels like some other property entirely. And then on top of that, it's just mostly boring or annoying. It's either as boring as watching The Wall, and I'm not talking about Pink Floyd's The Wall, I'm just talking about The Wall, a blank wall, or it's just obnoxious because of its tone, because of its attempts at humor, And because of the fact that it just goes by so quickly, so fast, but not in a good way. It's got this ADD kind of editing and flow to it. There's not really moments where you settle in and you get really invested in the movie, and time goes by quickly. Time goes by at a crawl, despite things going by so fast, because it never takes the time to really allow you to invest yourself in the story, the world, or these characters. And it all starts with the cover, the manhole cover in this instance. And that's the presentation. That's the first thing you see when it comes to this movie is the look of the film. I think the look of the film is a problem. First off, it's clearly trying to copy the Spider-Verse design. And to me, it's not really a good fit for the Turtles. And also the changes and the shifts that they do when it comes to the animation style is not very flattering to the eyes, and it's honestly pretty ugly. It's an ugly film to look at most of the time, with the jagged angles and the weird shadows, and it looks like some animation is maybe unfinished, and I know it's kind of the point they're trying to make it look like sketches or whatever, but it just looks off to me, especially when it comes to the way that the humans are drawn. The way that humans are drawn in this is disgusting. It really is. It's just really ugly to look at. Like when you see the humans in this, you're like, well, are we sure the turtles and the mutanimals are the mutants here? The humans look like they're mutants too. It's that bad. And I'm not saying that the Turtles was always like a very colorful, bright franchise in terms of its visual style. No, but it had a lot more vibrancy than this, and it's just everything just looks dark and dingy and just smelly. It looks like the movie itself stinks. Like it stinks like butt cheese. That's really what the movie looks like that. And to me that's just off-putting. So yeah, from the very first impression, it just doesn't have a good appearance to it, a good look to it. You got a dirty manhole. Okay, all right, you got a dirty manhole with cum stains on it and piss and who knows what else. And it just smells like you can just smell the sewer emanating from the screen. Then you get to the steps. You know, the steps into the sewer. And the steps into the sewer are the director. You know, the direction. Jeff Rowe, like he's the one he's leading you into the sewer. He's leading you into the sewer and into the film because he's the one that's directing everything. And you might as well have had Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs directing this movie because it's not like Jeff Rowe did anything really that special. And what's crazy is Jeff Rowe, he did Mitchell's versus the Machines, a film that I haven't seen yet, but I've heard some good things about, and I've seen some clips of. And from the clips that I saw, it's definitely a much more vibrant, energetic looking movie. You would think for a Turtles film, you would have a movie that would look less flat. But that's not the case here, other than maybe a few exceptions. The few action sequences that are in this movie, where there is any kind of movement or any sort of action. But when it comes to the scenes where it's just dealing with April, scenes where it's just dealing with the turtles and they're not doing anything, stuff with Splinter and so on, it looks very flat, looks very lifeless, not really a lot of variety in terms of camera, shots, movements, and so on. And it just seems like, you know, this is a series of steps into the sewer where there's a couple steps missing. So when you are stepping into the sewer, you tumble into the shitty and pissy water, and it's just not a very welcoming entrance to the sewer. You already had an issue with the manhole and so on, and just how it left residue on your hands when you lifted it up, and now you're going down the steps, and you're not even able to have like a full selection of steps to use to ease yourself into the sewer or into this film, because the direction is just very uneven. And I also wonder and question Jeff Rowe's fandom. Like, is he really that big of a fan of the Ninja Turtles, or is he just one of those fans that's kind of a casual? Because I would think that if you had somebody who was more passionate about these characters in this franchise, they would put their foot down more. They would talk about the issues more. They would fight with Seth Rogen more, some of the other writers. They wouldn't allow certain decisions to be made. And if there was a kickback and there was a struggle, they would go their separate ways. They would be let go because of creative differences, because they aren't willing or able to stand by the decisions that are being made in the creative process that are detrimental to the franchise and to the characters that they like and they genuinely love. Jeff Rowe just seems like a typical yes man in Hollywood. Yes, sir. Give me the check. Give me the opportunity to continue my career, and I'm going to be on my way, and I'm going to be happy. I'll say the right things for the press. I'll say the right things at the Comic-Con. I'll wear my Ninja Turtle shirt, but I'm not what you would consider to be a TMNT fan who is willing to stand by the integrity of these characters in this franchise. And you see that a lot with these directors that are picked to direct a lot of these films from these franchises. And it's really too bad. And I think if you had a director who was more passionate about things, who didn't just do this as a job, didn't just do this because they wanted to add something to their resume, you might have a better film. Because you could have somebody who would come in who also was a part of the writing staff, because Jeff Rowe was a part of the 5 different writers who wrote this movie. A fact that I still can't wrap my head around. 5 writers? It took 5 people to come up with a script this lazy and this uninspired? So, yeah, you have Jeff Rowe. He was a part of that group. If you had a different director, somebody who had a lot of passion and love for the Turtles, maybe they could come in and be like, "Hey, let's not make fun of the Mirage comics. That's going one step too far here. What are we doing with Splinter? Like, there's more to his character than this. Why are we having the Turtles insult Splinter and talk about how his butt smells like cheese and Doritos? Let's axe that. What is going on with April? Why is she even here? What is the purpose of her character? We need to flesh this character out more, because if she's just going to be a love interest for Leo, that's not enough. And Superfly, there's not really enough of a difference between him and the Turtles in terms of their origin. Let's work with that a little bit more. And why is it just have it be Baxter Stockman? I mean, that just, I don't understand why it can't just be Baxter Stockman. Why does it have to be just a fly that gets mutated? Bebop and Rocksteady are buddies and pals with the Turtles and Splinter? No, absolutely not. So like that when you have somebody who has more of a passion, has more of an understanding, they could be somebody who could be in the room and be like, why aren't they learned their martial arts school. They learned their martial arts skills based on YouTube videos and kung fu movies. That didn't work in the Michael Bay movies. Why are we doing that again? No. They're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Ninja needs to be a bigger part of this story. But no, he didn't do that because he isn't as that well versed, clearly, or he doesn't care. And that's a problem to me when it comes to somebody helming a film in a particular franchise. It needs to be more than just a job. And to give him more credit, there are some good looking scenes, like the montage scene where the turtles are all kicking a bunch of butt. That was a nice looking sequence. There are some moments in the climax with Super Duper Fly that I don't mind. There's a few other moments here and there where it looks all right visually and the direction is structurally sound. But like I said, most of the time it's uneven and the steps are missing. Then you get to the sewer itself, the entire structure of the sewer system. The most vital and important part of the entire film and of any sewer. And it's crumbling. There's holes in the walls. There's already leaks that are coming out of different parts of the sewer and just leaking sewage into the water and into the from the mains, and it's an absolute mess. This screenplay sucks. This is a really bad script. It's lazy, it's uninspired, and on top of that, it doesn't understand or get what makes Ninja Turtles or TMNT and its universe and its characters so special and unique. It takes away a lot of the things that make these characters cool, different, and who they are. And on top of that, adds new things and new elements that really don't do anything but become detrimental to the integrity of these characters and of this franchise as a whole. It's just a structurally unsound foundation. And it starts with the approach that they have to these characters, specifically the Ninja Turtles. For one, they aren't Ninja Turtles. They don't know anything about ninjutsu. There's no connection to Japanese culture. They learn how to be martial arts masters, not from Splinter, who learned from his master, Hamato Yoshi. No, he just learns the same way as they do from watching kung fu movies and YouTube or TikTok videos. Just like, Chucky learned how to do voodoo from a voodoo book for dummies and one of those lame Child's Play sequels. And I'm like, this is just lazy, and it just misses such an integral part of these characters and of this entire franchise. Why even call it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles anymore if there are no fucking ninjas? It's just Teenage Mutant Turtles. And to me, that's boring. That's not unique. That's not original. Amplifying the teenage elements to the millionth degree and just completely slicing and dicing and cutting out the ninja aspects. I'm sorry, just because they have weapons and they do some martial arts moves at some points in this movie, that doesn't actually make them ninjas. That's like calling Kick-Ass from the movie Kick-Ass a ninja. And he's not a ninja. And I'm like, why is this a repeated trend? The Michael Bay movies did the same thing. So why do they do it again here? Is it just laziness? Or is there something else behind it? And because it's happened so many times, and because, the day and age that we live in is so politically correct, I'm like, is this really due to some other thing? Is this really due to some bullshit that they're not going to throw in ninjas and ninjutsu and Japanese culture because they think that it's cultural appropriation or some nonsense? If that's the case, it doesn't make any sense, because in the 1990 film, Splinter was from Japan. You could just have Splinter be from Japan instead of just be some random New York City rat. You could just do the same thing, and then you work around it. And I guess they think that maybe amplifying the teenage elements makes them more relatable, but to me it doesn't. It just makes the Turtles less engaging on so many levels because it makes them more generic. Now I have a hard time separating the Turtles from your average cast member in Riverdale or some other CW teenage sitcom. That's not a good thing. Or just your generic group of crime fighters. And that genericness is so present in other ways in terms of how these characters are written, whether it's the Turtles, Splinter, or April. So with the Turtles in particular, okay, let's take a lot of their defining character traits and let's just dumb it down. Let's dumb it down, or let's take them away completely, or let's take their defining character traits and turn it against them for some reason. Let's make Leo the leader of the group, which makes sense, which is a part of his character, and he's the more mature one out of all of the teenagers. But let's make him the butt of his brother's jokes, to the point where they literally say he has his butt up Splinter. I mean, he has his head up Splinter's butt. My bad. And you got Raph, who's got issues with being a hothead and issues with his anger, but let's make him a bully. Let's make him a cliched bully who's just bullying his brothers and only has a change of heart because the script says so, and is used and manipulated by his brothers when it comes to his anger, like he's Chunk from the Goonies. When they want to get something from him, when they want him to break down the door or lift the turtle van, they're going to do something to rile them up. Or with Donnie, where he's a stereotypical nerd and even has nerdy glasses with tape on them and likes anime. Or with Michelangelo, where he's just the jokester of the group to the point where he's even into improv. Like that's an interesting new added aspect of his character. Oh, he's into improv. And I'm like, that's just typical cliched stuff. Oh, the funny guy, he wants to be funny? Just dumbing down these characters or just taking their traits and turning them against them. Even with their weapons. I mean, the scene with Raph using his side, one of the first times he uses it, he just doesn't know how to use it at all and hits his brother Donnie in the leg. Or the stuff with Donnie and the staff, where there's that scene during the chase where he's all like, what am I gonna do? I just have a stick. You know, it's like, I don't understand this approach when it comes to writing in these modern adaptations of popular franchises. They either dumb things down too much or they actively take steps in destroying the integrity of these characters. I mean, there's that whole scene where they parody the Mirage Comics look of the Turtles and are basically saying that if you think that the Turtles should be more serious, then you're laughable because that's silly. That's dumb. And I'm like, no, having the Turtles be this annoying and this much like a bunch of annoying twat teenagers, that's dumb to me. Having them not even be ninjas, that's dumb to me. Having them be closer to the source material is not something that's dumb or laughable or worth poking fun at to me. I just don't understand why the Turtles' origins, where they came from, has just been so forgotten by so many people. Like they think it's not even that important. The only Bible you need to work with when it comes to a modern Ninja Turtles movie or an adaptation is the 80s cartoon. I'm sick and tired of that. I don't mind the 80s cartoon, it's fun, but I prefer, and I grew up with this movie. I didn't even grow up with the 80s cartoon, I grew up with this film, and that's what made me discover the Mirage comics. So that's more of what I want out of a Turtles movie. And the 1990 film still holds up incredibly well, by the way, because it's just a better movie on every structural level than Mutant Mayhem. I'm just not a fan in general of how this screenplay and how these writers handled the turtles all the way around. Like, it's not just the deconstructive aspects of the script where they're poking holes in the characters' traits and doing stuff like parodying the Mirage comics. It's also the way they interact with each other. It comes across more mean spirited at times, or just not really anything that really feels like a genuine brotherhood between these brothers. It comes across more like they're just a group of friends at school. It's closer to the dynamic between the kids and good boys than it is to actually a group of brothers. It also doesn't help that every other line of dialogue is a forced pop culture reference, whether it's a movie, a song, or some kind of trendy buzzword like Riz or so on. And the memes and all of this. It comes across like the film is written by Steve Buscemi's character from that movie, with the meme where he's like dressed up like a teenager and he goes to high school and he's like, "How you doing, fellow kids?" Like, it's like that guy wrote this entire screenplay. It's pure cringe. It's just honestly kind of embarrassing to see the turtles try to be this forcibly trendy. And there were moments in the other films and some of the other turtle adaptations where there were elements like this, but not to this extent. It felt like so much of their character and so much of the running time is just devoted to them spouting pop culture references and trying to be trendy. And this is just something that just makes the characters not likable. You don't buy them as brothers, and then when they're trying to be funny, they aren't funny. And then when it comes to the action, when they're involved in any sort of fight scene, the way that things are written, you don't buy it. It doesn't make any sense that they're that capable after they were completely incompetent after their first fight, and then their second fight and onward is a montage of them just kicking ass and taking names. It doesn't make any sense. They didn't have any proper training. They didn't actually learn that much from Splinter because he doesn't know any better than they do. And they just learned everything from what they saw on YouTube or with kung fu movies. I almost said king fu movies. That's just talking about this film just discombobulates me. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay. And I know, like, oh, it's not supposed to be realistic. And I get it. I understand that. But that also ties into another problem with this script. This is a movie that wants to be silly and goofy with jokes about milking and puking and memes and Riz and all this other stuff. But then it also wants to have serious social commentary about people who are ostracized from society because of their appearance. It wants to have serious social commentary like that. But then it also wants to be silly and goofy and wants to have jokes about Splinter's butt smelling like cheese and Doritos. You can't have both of those things. And I know some people will say, well, the 1990 film and his other movies, they had moments like that. Yeah, but they just felt more balanced. The balance between seriousness and levity and potential social commentary about an abusive relationship or a family. It compared and contrasted to a relationship that's the opposite. That just felt like it was something that was more measured and just felt more cohesive. When this film is trying to be more serious, it just feels just as forced as everything else. And a big part of that is also the way that the characters are written. And it's not just the turtles that's a problem here. Splinter is also a very Splinter portrayal, no pun intended. They turn him into just your typical dad who's trying to do his best. A cliche, oh, he's trying to do his best. Oh, don't be too hard on him. He loves his sons and he's just trying to do his best here. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's only one aspect of Splinter's character. But because there's no ninja connection, then you lose so much of Splinter's character. Why does he have any sort of grand wisdom that he can share with his sons if he's just some random sewer New York rat who got mutated? What life lessons has he actually learned that he can share with his sons other than negative ones because of his interaction with humans? So he is portrayed as a bigot, and he provides that bigoted perspective to his sons, who then share that same viewpoint, which makes scenes where April is talking about people potentially dying during the finale where Superfly's throwing cars, and the turtles are like, "Oh wow, that's cool," because of the way that they're raised. And then you have to try to make it better by the end with the whole stuff where Splinter, he doesn't align with Superfly and disagrees with what he's doing and thinks that it's wrong, but it just feels very ineffective and it feels manufactured. There isn't anything genuine about it. And yeah, there are words of wisdom from Splinter in this movie that are still inspiring to this day. They're just beautifully worded. In this, there's nothing like that. Just generic statements. And honestly, you might as well have just had Splinter just say, "You can do it." Like you might as well just had Splinter do that, because that's really what it amounts to in terms of his wisdom. That doesn't help either that he's a pushover until he decides to show up and save the turtles in one scene. But yeah, just a poor portrayal of Splinter. And I know some people will be like, "What? You just want the same thing?" In this case, yes, I do, because it's a good portrayal. It's an integral part of the character. I find it funny that, oh well, you're just upset that it's different. No, I'm upset that it's a different shift that sucks. That's what I'm upset by, not because it's just different. Because there's a lot of films, a lot of adaptations of comics and so on that have made different choices with the portrayals of characters, and I'm okay with it because it's actually effective. This isn't effective. It makes the character worse. It makes these characters worse. All these changes make these characters worse. It doesn't make them better. It makes the turtles worse. It makes Splinter worse, and it makes April worse because it turns April into a joke too. The turtles are a lot. There's a lot of scenes where they are basically parodies and satires of themselves, and then you have April O'Neil, who's Puke O'Neil. She's Puke O'Neil, and at the same time, she doesn't even really feel like she's that integral to anything, other than the relationship between her and Leonardo, which I didn't care about to begin with. Because all the stuff that she does in terms of uh, finding all of the patterns and the clues when it comes to Superfly and what his plan is, that's all stuff that Donatello could do, maybe. Give him something to do. Give him a way to showcase his intelligence and his smarts. Have him be the one doing surveillance. Have him being the one that shows his brothers that he's more than just a nerd who likes anime. Maybe, but no, don't do that. We give April that because she has to have something to do. Well, no, she doesn't, because she doesn't even have to be in the film to begin with. You could just save her for the second movie. And the stuff with April and just the way that things are presented, it's even half-assed because, oh, it's all about her gaining the courage and getting over the fear of public speaking and becoming confident and so on and so forth, and gaining the respect of her peers. And she still pukes on camera in front of an entire city. So, oh, she doesn't profusely vomit, but she still pukes. So she's still Puke O'Neil in a lot of people's minds. And even if she did not puke at all, you know how the internet is. People are unforgiving. She will always be Puke O'Neil to a lot of people. So why even go there? Why even add that to that character? It's just detrimental to the character as a whole. And then you have Superfly. And I don't know why Superfly wasn't just Baxter Stockman. You kill off Baxter Stockman and you just replace him with just a very generic version of his character, of his mutated self. I don't understand why that was the case. You could have just had Ice Cube voice Baxter Stockman and then become mutated, and there you go. Like, why did it have to be a separate thing? It's trying too hard to be different in a way that's not effective, that's inefficient. And then you have the mutanimals, and they all have the same origin as the turtles, and I don't remember that always being the case. There were differences. Some of them even came from different dimensions. So now you take all of that away, and now it's just the same origin story. They're just basically the turtles, but they're led by the anti-Splinter. But at the same time, the way that Splinter is portrayed and written here, you don't necessarily think the Splinter is that much better, other than maybe just a slight difference in approach. And then going back to the mutanimals, like, there's nothing to these characters. They're just as paper thin and just as much of sticker pad as any of the other characters in this script. Just don't even have that many mutanimals. Why do you even need them to begin with? It's not like they do anything. So, at least not anything that substantial. They're not that integral to the plot and how things unfold. Oh, they're there to be parallels to the turtles. Well, you could have just one of them, like Mondo Gecko or something. You don't need to have all of them in one movie. But the only reason why they're there is for name recognition, to get butts in the seats, to make this film feel more important and larger in scale because it has all these big names in the cast. And then all of this then culminates to a climax that's also full of holes and riddled with issues. I mean, first off, it's unbelievably cliched. Superfly's plan is the same plan as the Lizards in Amazing Spider-Man, and very similar to the plan in the first Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movie. Another instance of copying from a inefficient formula. Like, why are we doing that? You did the whole April relationship with the turtle. You copy that over here, and it didn't work in the Michael Bay movie. And now you're doing the same thing with the villain's plan. And then you have the climax with just a big giant monster. It's just a monster rampaging through New York City. And the turtles have to stop it. And it's just as silly and daft to me as the ending of Turtles 2 where the turtles fight Super Shredder, because you take away a lot of what makes the turtles fun to watch when it comes to them interacting with each other or in getting involved in a climactic battle, because now they're not even using much of their martial arts or their ninja skills, just the bare minimum, because they're fighting a giant monster. And I get what they're trying to go for with the city of New York, helping them out and so on, but that just reminds me of Spider-Man and a bunch of other things, and it just makes the film even more derivative. It really does. You know that quote from the first 1990 Ninja Turtles movie where Michelangelo is making up all these shell puns and Donnie's like, too derivative. Like, that's that's a great way to sum up this script and this entire movie. Most of it is just derivative. And then you have the whole ending where they're accepted by society and they go to prom and go to high school. And to me, that's not a positive. Because now, okay, what's the conflict? What was really the conflict to begin with? That's another problem with the script. Like, what really was the major conflict here? The turtles want to be accepted? That seems like all it is. Like, the turtles want to be accepted. So did Superfly. And then Superfly wasn't, so then he decided to change everything and kill all the humans. And then the turtles and Splinter were like, hey, that's not cool. and then they stop Superfly. And then in the process of them stopping Superfly, they become accepted and their dreams come true and they live happily ever after and they go to the prom and they dance the night away with Kevin Bacon. And it's like Footloose all over again. I don't that doesn't really fucking work for me when it comes to a Turtles story and really to anything, because it's just a weak culmination of this conflict. It's resolved too quickly and too easily. So even that doesn't work. Oh, they just want to be accepted. And then everything just happens the way that they wanted it to, and way too easily, with not really much of an issue. Where if you look at like something like the 1990 film, there's actual conflict and turmoil in this movie that resonates on a stronger level, where they were so busy being in the outside world and having fun and think about pizza and all this other stuff that they kind of forgot about what was so important. And specifically, they forgot about their master. And then when their master gets stolen, what gets taken away by the Shredder and the Foot Clan, that really puts things into perspective. And then through the turmoil and the stress of losing Splinter, it causes other parts of the relationship between these brothers to fall apart. You have the scene where Raph and Leo get in a fight, and Raph goes out on his own, and then gets in a situation where he's outnumbered by the Foot, and he gets his butt kicked, and he gets hurt, and that affects Leo, and it affects the group. And then you have the scene where Raph wakes up, and Leo is emotional because he was genuinely worried that his brother might die. There's nothing like that when it comes to a conflict or anything dramatic in this script. So when you get to the big stakes of Superfly's plan and him even as a giant mutant, none of it really carries any weight. So yeah, this script is just a really bad, worn down sewer with no structural integrity. It's falling apart at the seams at every corner. And then you get to the other parts of the sewer. You get to the water. You get to the floor. You get to the ground level. That's got the sewage and the piss and all of this other stuff and like used needles and so on. And that's where you have the voice cast. That's where you have elements like that. And it's just as bad as everything else in this sewer. Because the voice cast, other than maybe a couple exceptions, is mostly shit. You've got Micah Abbey as Donatello, who sounds like he's the annoying little brother in a Nickelodeon sitcom. That's really what he sounds like. I get it. You have teenagers voicing teenagers. That's not much of a selling point to me, especially if they're this annoying. Donatello was so irritating to listen to. And then you have Shamon Brown Jr. as Michelangelo, and he sounds like he's 25. Donatello sounds like he's 5. Michelangelo sounds like he's 25. He sounds like he's in college. He doesn't even sound like he's going to be a high schooler. And I don't even think he was really that funny. I don't think his line delivery was that great when it comes to the jokes, when it comes to the one-liners. So Michelangelo is supposed to be very, clever. And he's supposed to be a guy who could throw out one-liners like nobody's business and do it in a very charismatic way. And I didn't really feel that way when it comes to Shamon Brown Jr. as Michelangelo. As much as I didn't like the Michael Bay movies, I think the voice actor who did Mikey in that did a better job. And that's insane for me to admit, but it's true. Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo was the only voice actor who played a turtle that did a good job to me. And even he had problems because he had to work with this shitty script. So there's only so much he could do with it. But I thought he did a good job. He personified Leo as a leader well. And even when it comes to the moments where he's got, you know, puppy dog eyes over April, some of it was kind of cute, mainly because of Nicholas Cantu and what he brought to the character. Brady Noon, though, as Raphael, horrible miscasting. I mean, did not buy him as Raphael. I think he was only cast because he was in Good Boys. I really truthfully feel that way. Seth Rogen knew this guy, was familiar with him from Good Boys, so he got casted in the film. And I don't feel he was a good fit for Raph at all. Yeah, he did sound more like Nelson from The Simpsons. Like he was going to dunk Bart's head 5 times into the toilet some point in the movie. And that doesn't fit with Raphael. And there's just no edge to his voice work. Raph is supposed to have an edge to him. Some sort of edge. Something that makes you buy that he's the tough guy in the group. He doesn't have that at all. And it's just not a good fit. To continue going through this cast, you have Ayo Edebiri as April. And for the most part, I thought she did a pretty bad job because there's no charisma, there's no charm, there's no spunk, there's no anything. Most of the time, it seems like every line of dialogue is going to be followed with an eye roll. Other than maybe one sequence where she's talking to the media and trying to clear the turtle's name. Other than that, like, there's not really a lot of energy or just vitality to this voiceover. She just sounds bored and disaffected. Maya Rudolph is Cynthia Utrom, just a typical Russian bad guy performance, and the accent wasn't even that good. Jackie Chan as Splinter. It just seemed like he was kind of doing the same shtick as he's done in any other film where he's playing a mentor role. And it just didn't do anything for me. I was just unimpressed and just very unenthusiastic overall about his performance as Splinter. I think Mako did a better job, and definitely Kevin Clash. And Ice Cube as Superfly, I mean, the character wasn't that intimidating, but that's not really necessarily Ice Cube's fault. I thought his performance was one of the other few consistent aspects of this voice cast. Like, I was like, okay, this performance isn't too bad. But then everyone else is just there because of name recognition. Just so people can look at the posters and look at the cast and be like, oh, I know that guy. Or I know that gal. Oh, John Cena, Seth Rogen. You know, John Cena's Rocksteady. Seth Rogen is Bebop. Rose Byrne is Leatherhead. Paul Rudd is Mondo Gecko. Post Malone is Ray Fillet. Hannibal Buress is Genghis Frog. Mr. Beast as some random guy in Times Square. Like, to me, they added nothing to the movie. It just, I mean, I get it. You have name recognition, but they added nothing to the film. So why even have them there? Take them out and focus more on the Turtles and Splinter and Superfly and so on. Or Baxter Stockman and flesh out his character. Like, I don't really care about any of these cameos by these celebrities. It adds nothing to this movie. So yeah, this voice cast, for the most part, is pretty bad, pretty awful. And then you have, let's say, you know, the different bits of trash and stuff is floating around in the water, which is what the cast is. But so is these other elements, you know, like the toilet paper floating around the sewer, like the cinematography by Kent Secchi, which I thought was pretty sucky, to be honest. The film just didn't look that great from a cinematography perspective most of the time, especially in comparison to Spider-Verse, which it's apparently trying to emulate. The editing by Greg Leviton, very uneven and choppy and just shaky in general. Other than one or two action sequences, most of the time the editing was just something that hurt the movie instead of being a boon to it or something that helped the movie in general. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I think it's also another one of the few good things about this film. And it's a shame that it's not in a better film or a better Turtles movie because this is a fun score. I had more fun listening to this score than listening to the Turtles talk. And then you have the songs that they chose for the soundtrack. And you want to talk about sucking. Like, these songs are so bad. They suck more than a fucking Hoover vacuum. And they don't fit the film that well. Like, the Scarface song, I kind of don't mind on its own, Push It to the Limit, but I've heard that too many times in like parodies and joke videos. So it just makes it seem like the whole martial arts and kung fu origin of the ninja parts of the Turtles is just one there for one big laugh and it's just a goof. Then you have What's Going On, which that song already has not aged well. I don't like that song anyway. And now it's like just a big part of the movie. So the song itself is already annoying. And then they do a remix later that just makes it 10 times more annoying. It's just a bad idea all the way around. And I'm just like, what's going on indeed? With the hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, you tell me, like, what's going on indeed? What's going on with this franchise? What's going on with this shitty movie? Why am I hearing this ear bleeding song in a film that's already annoying and hard to watch for too much of the running time? I mean, you even have like ninja rap in one scene. And you know what? Ninja rap is not a song I'm a big fan of, but I'd rather take that than the awful remix of What's Going On or whatever music they were playing throughout the movie. Look at the soundtrack for the 1990 film. Like, it's just so much better. Not only do you have Turtle Power by Partners in Crime, you also have 9.95 by Spunkadelic and a whole lot of other songs that are way better. Like even the MC Hammer song, This Is What We Do. Like, the soundtrack for this movie sucks. And yeah, it's just the toilet paper that's just floating around in the sewer water. And yeah, you add all these things together, and the film is just, it's a sewer. It's a cinematic sewer from the top to the bottom. And I just wasn't really into the film, as you can see. Not my movie, not my Turtles, not something that really worked for me on really any level. Not even a base level for the most part, other than maybe like one or two voice actors, the score, and maybe a couple scenes. Other than that, could not stand this film. I thought it was just too much of a deviation from what I personally feel makes a good Ninja Turtles movie or a good Ninja Turtle story. And it's a shame that after all this time, we still don't have a good quality Ninja Turtles movie that appeals to both adults and kids. Instead, we have another film that's firmly rooted in the goddamn kiddie pool or the shallow end of the pool, and we can't go into the deep end because the kids might not be able to swim and they don't have their floaties on. And it's just one of those things that's like, why do we keep doing this with the Turtles? There's more to these characters and there's more to this franchise and more to this universe than just this approach. And this film doesn't do anything but just solidify that. Sadly, because it made enough of a profit, probably sold enough toys, that this is just what we're going to get going forward with another Turtles movie. But anyway, that's my long and in-depth rant and review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.
Where did they come up with this stuff?